Alrighty then. Alrighty. So this is something that we shared with athletes a few years ago, and it helped them to make sense of how we program, um, how we structure a year of programming, and I think with that understanding, they got more out of the program as well, which is great. So it's called the functional continuum, okay, and if we have a look at each side, so we'll start with this side. We've got the competition peak, which for most of us was either the Open or the CrossFit Games quarterfinals. All right. Our training built up all year towards this point. Now we are here, back in the reset phase now. So we should have assessed what we need to work on for this upcoming year. And with identifying it, have a plan to correct it and improve throughout this next year. So this diagram shows you how we very simply structure our training. So we've got to correct the movements, okay? So we've identified the movements, we know what needs correcting. Okay. So we start off with breaking everything down. So we work on energy systems, all the energy systems more in isolation on their own. So we do a lot more, just aerobic work on machines or running on its own. Same for sprint work. Okay. So we're really just honing in and looking to work on each energy system more individually. All right. The second one, skill work. So, for example, a big one this year was the crossover single under and the wall facing strict handstand push up. So, we need to, or some of us will probably need to practice this more in isolation. So, we get better at the movement, we play around, find what's the best technique. Once we've got to grips with the movement, we can then look to, right, can we look to do it with a slightly higher heart rate. But first, we need to make sure that we master the skill without any other interference. For strength, again, coming back to the wall facing strict handstand push up as an example, do we have the strength to do it? It's a simple question, yes or no. Could you do one? Yes, you do have the strength, but do we need to get stronger first to make sure we can get more reps before we build capacity? And this also goes for weightlifting, other strength work. Obviously, if you've got a higher level of strength, it tends to make all your, what were your weights feel much easier just with getting stronger. Okay. And then we've got movement quality. So just focusing on moving as well as possible. Again, because we're practicing more movements in isolation or in formats that mean you can keep much better quality. Okay, without the technique breaking down, we obviously get better at the movement. So we've got better energy systems, we've worked on them, we've hopefully got stronger and mastered some skills, great, and we've hopefully improved our movement quality. So we're starting to become more efficient, at each of these areas. So this is what the general preparation phase is all about. Obviously, then we need to get more specific once we've built this base. So we go into the specific preparation period. So obviously we've, hopefully got stronger. We've got a bigger back squat. We've probably evened out imbalances, got a bigger back squat. It's now time to pass that on to the weightlifting work. Okay, I'll go into more specifics of weightlifting and gymnastic examples of this, but we get more specific. So that means, we do plenty of cleans, snatches, making sure that the strength work is getting more specific. Same for the power and the endurance as well. Being able to, cycle a barbell rep after rep after rep. Have the strength to do that first. Also have the power to keep repping it out, and also the endurance. If it's more touch and go and it requires you to hold on to the object, whatever it is you're using. So like I said, we've worked on each of these in isolation. In this period, it's also time to start blending elements. So that might mean that, right, we take a movement, call it toes to bar, and can we start to do it under some interference? Add some rowing in beforehand or something like that, just to get the heart rate up. Like I say, introduce a little bit of interference, but not too much, okay? It's too early on, the movement breaks down and we're practicing poor movement patterns, okay? So we gradually introduce interference and get better at that as we get through this specific preparation phase. And obviously there's more specific conditioning to what we do. So we've worked on aerobic base more, we've worked more on, our power output. It's time, you can see they're starting to come together as we come through. Okay, we start to do obviously more threshold work now, because most CrossFit workouts, tend to be in that 7 to 12, up to 15-minute work. So it means that, the conditioning has got to get more specific to that as well. So that's the specific preparation phase. Okay, and then we go into this pre-competition phase. So this is, again, where things get even more specific. All right, so again, this could be a snatch ladder. So more in like formats that we're used to in CrossFit, but having a variation of, right, a 10-8-6-4-2 snatch ladder, ascending weights on its own, so you can still practice in quality. Right, the next week we might blend it with some other movements, so you can get used to that interference as well. So there's a balance of practicing good movement patterns, but also making sure that we're getting plenty of exposure to different things that could interfere, with the movement, like the strict handstand push-ups and snatches this year. Prime example. So it's making sure, right, still moving well, but we're also practicing, like I say, that exposure to things as well. More workouts you can expect, this time of year as well. Okay. Like I say, we're getting closer to competition time, so it makes sense that we get more specific in everything that we do as well. And obviously it's conditioning, again, that starts to become more specific again. So rather than like machine threshold work, okay, we might start to introduce EMOMs with, other movements in, like dumbbell snatches, burpee, box jumps, all that sort of stuff. So again, it's getting more specific to what we usually do in competition. And then obviously once the kind of open comes along, we've obviously, hopefully been practicing plenty of workouts. So we have been practicing plenty of workouts. It's time to put it to the test. All right. And this is when the open happens. We do our quarterfinal simulation just to put the final touches on all the work we've done this past year. So just brushing up on little things that, are almost 3 inches where, right, can we look to just sharpen up our transitions, which we should have been practicing probably most of the year, but it could be a more specific setup to how quarterfinals has been, or little things like that. And dialing in nutrition and all that sort of stuff. You might have been a bit lax earlier on in the year. You can maybe not be quite as hot on it, but obviously in this period, it's like, right, we're in game time now. It's making sure that we're doing everything we can to get all those inches and make sure we get the result that we want to. I think the other thing that's important to note is the compete program. So people usually ask, what is the difference between JST Athlete, which follows this, and the compete program? So the compete program is competition phase programming. So what that means is that if you have a competition coming up, throughout the year that you would like to peak for, rather than, the quarterfinals are open, you want to take a few more competition seriously, then you would follow the compete program, because that is competition phase programming. It's kind of a blend of these two a little bit that will obviously, help more specifically prepare you for that. So it depends, have you got your eyes on something shorter term, or have you got your eyes on the longer term goal? The Compete program is likely to next lead up to Strength in Depth, the UK Championships in July. So just bear that in mind as well. But yeah, that's what the Compete program is. I hope you found that useful. I know it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people, and it explains nicely how we program. Look, we break it down a little bit first before we start building it back up together. And obviously, the bigger the base that you build, the higher the pyramid has got the potential to be. So, double down. Don't try and rush things. Let's, do it in a way that we know is proven to work, with plenty of scientific studies out there, principles, methods that we use. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that, guys.